Hey there, History Rebels, Mr. Basil here, and boy, do I have some stories your high school teacher definitely skipped over. You know why? Because some truths are just too wild, too controversial, or too downright embarrassing for the textbooks. Today, we're cracking open the vault on 15 historical secrets that were deliberately left out of your education. And trust me, by the time we hit number 7, you're gonna question everything you thought you knew about the past. Let's dive in. Secret 1, the CIA dosed an entire French town with LSD. Picture this, it's 1951, a quiet French village called Pont Saint-Esprit. Suddenly, hundreds of people start hallucinating, mass hysteria, people jumping out of windows thinking they can fly, 5 dead, 30 in straitjackets. The official story, contaminated bread, ergot poisoning, case closed. Except, declassified documents revealed the CIA's MKUltra program was testing LSD on unsuspecting populations. Pont Saint-Esprit, prime testing ground. Your history book called it a mysterious outbreak. The CIA called it Operation Span of Arc. And here's the kicker, they never faced consequences because the documents stayed classified for decades. But wait till you hear what the Vatican was hiding in their archives. Secret 2, the Vatican's banned book collection. Deep in the Vatican's secret archives sits a collection of over 35,000 volumes, not religious texts. We're talking banned books, forbidden knowledge, manuscripts the church didn't want you reading. Why? Because some challenged the church's narrative. Others contained dangerous scientific theories. Galileo's works were there for centuries just because he said Earth revolves around the sun. The twist, in 2012 they rebranded it from Secret Archives to Apostolic Archives for better PR. Same books, different name, classic rebrand move. And if you think the church had secrets, wait until you hear what the US government buried about a certain war. Secret 3, the Gulf of Tonkin incident was a lie. August 1964, North Vietnamese torpedo boats allegedly attacked American destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin twice. President Johnson used this to justify the Vietnam War, which killed 58,000 Americans and millions of Vietnamese. Here's the thing, the second attack never happened. Declassified NSA documents in 2005 confirmed it was completely fabricated. Radar ghosts, misinterpreted sonar, bad weather, no enemy boats, but by then, decades of war, trauma, and death based on a lie. Your textbook probably said tensions escalated. The truth, they were manufactured. And speaking of manufactured narratives, let's talk about a drug that was totally legal until it wasn't. Secret 4, cannabis was criminalized to target minorities. Before 1937, cannabis was perfectly legal in America. It was in medicines, widely used, no big deal. Then Harry Anslinger, head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, launched a propaganda campaign. His goal? Criminalize marijuana to target Mexican immigrants and black communities. His actual quote, "Reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men." Yeah, that's the foundation of cannabis prohibition. The war on drugs wasn't about drugs, it was about control and racial oppression. Nixon's advisor later admitted they couldn't make being black or anti-war illegal, so they criminalized drugs instead. Your DARE program never mentioned that origin story, did it? But you know what's even crazier? What happened during a certain exploration of the Americas. Secret 5, Columbus never set foot in North America. Christopher Columbus, hero explorer who discovered America, right, wrong on multiple levels. First, he never landed in what's now the United States. He hit the Caribbean islands and South America, that's it. Second, millions of indigenous people already lived here. You can't discover a populated continent. Third, and your textbook definitely skipped this, Columbus enslaved, tortured, and massacred indigenous populations. His own journals describe cutting off hands of natives who didn't bring enough gold. He died thinking he'd reached Asia. Guy was geographically confused and morally monstrous. Yet we gave him a holiday, make it make sense. And speaking of things that don't make sense, let's talk about a war that was nearly erased from American memory. Secret 6, the Tulsa Race Massacre was erased from history. May 31, 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the prosperous black neighborhood of Greenwood known as Black Wall Street was thriving. Successful businesses, wealthy families, total economic independence. Then, a white mob, aided by local authorities and deputized citizens, attacked. They bombed the neighborhood from airplanes. Yes, Americans dropped bombs on Americans. Over 300 black residents murdered, 1,256 homes destroyed, thousands left homeless. For decades, this wasn't in textbooks. It wasn't taught. Survivors were silenced. The massacre was deliberately deliberately erased from history. It wasn't until 2001, 80 years later, that Oklahoma officially acknowledged it. Even then, many schools still don't teach it. Why? Because admitting domestic terrorism happened on American soil against Black Americans ruins the land of the free narrative. But hold on, this next one is about to blow your mind about ancient medicine. Secret 7. Ancient Egyptians performed brain surgery successfully. Your history class, ancient people were primitive. Reality, ancient Egyptian doctors performed skull surgeries, trepanation to treat head injuries and relieve pressure, and people survived. We've found skulls with clear evidence of healing, meaning patients lived for years after surgery. No anesthesia, no sterilization, just raw skill. They also had the first documented case of cancer treatment, performed dental procedures, and created prosthetics. Meanwhile, 3,000 years later, European doctors thought bloodletting cured everything and washing hands was optional. Ancient, primitive civilizations were often more medically advanced than we give them credit for. And speaking of things more advanced than we thought, let's talk about what really ended WWII. Secret 8. The USSR, not D-Day, defeated Nazi Germany. Hollywood loves the narrative. Brave American soldiers storm Normandy, defeat Hitler, save the world. Except the real heavy lifting, that was the Soviet Union. The Eastern Front was the largest and deadliest theater of WWII. The Soviets killed about 80% of all German soldiers who died in the war. Stalingrad, Kursk, the march to Berlin, those were Soviet victories. By the time D-Day happened in June 1944, the Nazis were already losing badly to the USSR. Don't get me wrong, Allied forces were crucial, but the Cold War rewrote history to downplay Soviet contributions and boost American exceptionalism. Your textbook gave you the Hollywood version. The reality, much more complicated. But you know what's not complicated? The fact that a president once stole human remains. Secret 9. Teddy Roosevelt grave robbed Geronimo's skull. Teddy Roosevelt, rugged outdoorsman, national hero, face on Mount Rushmore. Also, member of Yale's Skull and Bones Society, which allegedly grave robbed Apache leader Geronimo's remains in 1918. According to multiple accounts, members dug up Geronimo's grave at Fort Sill and took his skull, femur, and other bones as trophies for their secret society clubhouse. Geronimo's descendants have tried for decades to get the remains back. Yale denies everything. The government's been suspiciously quiet. Your history class painted Roosevelt as a conservationist hero. They left out the whole desecrating indigenous graves part. And if you think that's dark, wait until you hear what happened at a boarding school. Secret 10. Native American children were forcibly re-educated. From the 1800s to the 1960s, the US and Canadian governments ran boarding schools designed to kill the Indian, save the man. Native American children were forcibly removed from their families, forbidden from speaking their languages, stripped of their culture, and often abused physically, emotionally, and sexually. Thousands died. Mass graves are still being discovered at these schools in 2024. This wasn't ancient history. The last school closed in 1996. People alive today survived this. Your textbook maybe mentioned assimilation programs in one paragraph. It was cultural genocide. But speaking of things your textbook glossed over, let's talk about a founding father's hypocrisy. Secret 11. Thomas Jefferson owned 600+ slaves while writing, "All men are created equal." The cognitive dissonance is staggering. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, proclaiming liberty and equality. Then he went home to Monticello, where he enslaved over 600 human beings throughout his lifetime. He fathered at least 6 children with Sally Hemings, a woman he enslaved. She had no choice. That's not romance, that's rape. For centuries, historians denied this. Then DNA evidence in 1998 confirmed it. Your history class called him a man of contradictions. Let's call it what it is: moral failure and hypocrisy on a grand scale. And speaking of moral failures, let's discuss what happened during Prohibition. Secret 12. The US government poisoned alcohol during Prohibition. The 1920s, alcohol is banned. People drink anyway, often industrial alcohol redistributed as booze. So what did the government do? They ordered industrial alcohol manufacturers to add deadly poisons, methanol, kerosene, gasoline, even arsenic, to their products. The goal: make bootleg alcohol so dangerous people would stop drinking. The result: an estimated 10,000 Americans died from poisoned alcohol. The government deliberately poisoned its own citizens as a deterrent policy. When doctors protested, officials doubled down. Your history class focused on flappers bars and speakeasies, they skipped the state-sanctioned mass poisoning. But wait till you hear what the military did to its own soldiers. Secret 13, the U.S. military conducted nuclear tests on its own troops. 1950s and 60s, the height of nuclear testing. The U.S. conducted over 200 atmospheric nuclear tests in Nevada. Soldiers were deliberately positioned near blast sites, sometimes just miles away, to test the effects of radiation on troops. No protective gear, no informed consent. They called them atomic soldiers. Thousands developed cancer and other radiation-related illnesses. The government denied responsibility for decades. Declassified footage shows troops marching toward mushroom clouds like it's a training exercise. Your textbook talked about the nuclear arms race. It didn't mention the government used soldiers as guinea pigs. And if you think that's the worst experiment, buckle up for this next one. Secret 14, the Tuskegee syphilis study let black men die untreated for 40 years. 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service told 600 black men in Alabama they were receiving free health care for bad blood. The truth, 399 had syphilis and were deliberately left untreated, even after penicillin became the standard cure in 1947, so doctors could study the disease's progression. Men went blind, developed severe health issues, died, their wives got infected, their children were born with congenital syphilis. For 40 years, it only stopped in 1972 when a whistleblower leaked it to the press. President Clinton formally apologized in 1997. Your textbook might have mentioned it in a sidebar. It deserves a chapter on medical racism and ethics violations. But before we wrap up, here's the final secret that changes everything you thought about the moon landing. Secret 15, NASA left poop bags on the moon. Okay, this one's lighter but still wild. You know those inspiring moon landing photos, the technological triumph of humanity? Well, we also left 96 bags of human waste up there. Astronauts had limited cargo space for moon rocks, so they dumped their poop bags to make room. There are now 96 bags of astronaut feces on the lunar surface, forever. NASA is actually interested in going back to study them because microbial life might have survived in the waste. Imagine the most important biological discovery in history found in Neil Armstrong's poop. Your history book gave you one small step for man. I'm giving you one giant dump for mankind. So there you have it, folks. 15 historical secrets that somehow didn't make the curriculum. From government poisonings to moon poop, history is messier, darker, and way weirder than textbooks admit. The question is, what else aren't they telling us? If you made it this far, drop a comment with the secret that shocked you most. And hey, if your history teacher ever lied to you about Columbus, tag them. They've got some explaining to do. Hit that subscribe button for more truths they don't want you to know. I'm Mr. Basil, and remember, history is written by the winners, but we're here to read between the lies.